All
Ooh,
right, this is Deborah Colleen Rose and my friend and partner in crime, Luann Morris.
hello,
She's a
everyone.
nurse. She is an herbalist. She has Herbal Lu Apothecary. And this is Herbal Talk, sponsored by Herbal Lu Apothecary. And today we're talking about echinacea. And I have to read you a disclaimer before we let Luann talk. This is an FDA disclaimer. The products and statements made about specific products have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided or any information contained or in any product label or packaging is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. You should not use the information given for diagnosis or treatment of any health problems. Always consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new vitamin supplements, diet, or exercise program, before taking any medication, or if you have or suspect you might have a health problem. Thank you.
Okay, that was fast and accurate.
Thank you. Well
So
done.
I want to talk about echinacea.
Can you spell it?
Of course I can. Echinacea, but we also call it the coneflower, and it's from the sunflower family. So it ought to be, huh?
I said, oh, that's interesting. I was just talking to myself.
Well, and there are many, many species, and some of them we are just ornamental, but the three that we use in medicine is pallida, Pallida, augustifolia, Augustgolia, augustifolia. And in traditional medicine, it's purpura, Purpura. It's also called maxima, the purpura species. So those are the three that we use in medicine, and when we're making medicinal medicines. Echinacea is in my elderberry syrup. It's in my throat spray. Yeah, I think that's the only two. So it's native to the Rocky Mountains. That's where it was first discovered, and it's widely cultivated everywhere for medicinal uses. So some of the common uses are like to reduce the duration of a cold or flu. Now, it doesn't prevent it. So you can take it every day, but it's not going to prevent a cold. But once you get the cold, if you take it, it can kind of help cut down on the number of days. That it was also done in a study where it helped to cut back 4 or 5 days of symptoms of a cold. So that was very interesting.
What gives echinacea its superpowers? Is it a lot of vitamin C, or what is it?
Well, let's see. I'm sure I wrote that down. The active compounds have been identified as the mechanism of action. So that would be what? See, you've got me off.
I'm sorry. I
That's
just
okay.
have a curiosity. But the right question is what are the active compounds of echinacea? So I learned something just in asking the question.
Of course. It really assists the immune system, and excuse me.
Bless you.
You always need to check. Hang on. Where is it?
Well, just go on with we'll get to it later. I didn't mean to throw
it's
you
in
off.
here. It's in here somewhere. I'll just keep going. So it's inflammation modulating. In other words, it helps cut down on redness, swelling, itchiness, dryness. If you use it topically in bronchitis, it can help reduce the inflammation in the little bronchioles in your lungs. It's thought sometimes to reduce anxiety. Just remember that these things are mostly proved by herbalists and by shamans who have used it for thousands of years. So it's not really research quality information where they have two groups and one only takes echinacea and the other one doesn't. There's a few of those out there, but I think that the research doctors have really fallen down and not doing more research with herbs. I mean, look at digitalis. Digitalis comes from foxglove.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So that is now synthetic. They don't actually use the plant anymore. They use a synthetic version, but that's where it originated from. And that was from years and years and years of experiments by shamans and herbalists and healers.
Well, here's what I don't understand. They really don't know why aspirin works.
Hmm.
They don't. They really have not figured that out. But yet they sell aspirin in the medicine aisle of every major store out there. Okay. So why? Yeah, and I know we're seeing a growing number of herbs available in stores, but it just seems like, why were we so slow to get on board with commercializing all of this
How
stuff?
long do you think aspirin's been around?
Probably thousands of years.
Because it's a component of the willow tree.
Mhm.
And originally, we have recorded information that the Indians actually chewed willow.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they knew it would have pain relief. So because of that, that's where more research came in to discover exactly where the pain relief came from. So I'm not sure if it's a particular species of willow tree, but I do know that that's where it originated from. Let's see, this was another experiment talking about oxygen use and how they tried healthy adult men. They used 2 grams of echinacea every day for 4 days, for 28 days, and they actually improved their oxygen intake during exercise. I found that interesting.
Well, that would make it interesting if it's an anti-inflammatory and it works with bronchitis because it's going to open up all of those
Mhm.
tubes. So of course you're going to get better oxygen flow. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah. So this goes back to the clinical trials and how they're few and far between. And if they don't start doing more of that, then we're not ever going to have new things come along. And the thing about it is, a lot of times herbs are just like prescription drugs. I might be able to take it, but you may not.
Right.
You know, I use ashwagandha and it helps with my stress. Well, I had a friend try it. She just could not tolerate it. It hurt her stomach.
Maybe it was the brand though that she had too. So you have to take that into consideration. Different brands have different qualities, and then the dark side of the moon of this subject is that if the pharmaceuticals do get more involved with herbs, they're going to go sky high in price. They're going to regulate them. You may have to have a prescription now to get them instead of going to your nature store or your vitamin store. So I don't know how much we want to push them having the FDA involved in studying this stuff. It may bite us in the butt.
That's the problem that herbalists are having. That's the fear, is that all of a sudden the FDA will take a spike in helping, how helping and it will start to ban things that people actually get uses from.
This is my Herbal Lu chapstick I'm putting on right now. Be by my friend Herbal Lu on the next screen.
Yes, we do many things. So immunosuppressors, it can suppress the immune system just like the elderberry does. We talked about elderberry syrup before. So if you're taking anything to suppress your immune system, echinacea and elderberry is going to try to pump it up.
What would suppress your immune system?
Usually, sometimes disease, and sometimes like people who have leukemia, they want to suppress their immune system, so they stop making white blood cells.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because they want to go in and replenish the damaged white blood cells. That's why they do bone marrow transplant.
Oh, see, I didn't know. I knew they did that, but I didn't know why.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The white blood cells kind of go berserk. So another thing with echinacea, they decided that sometimes it can actually decrease how quickly the body breaks down the caffeine. So the caffeine could hang around longer if you're taking echinacea.
And what are the implications of that? Is that good? Is it bad? Is that harmful?
If people are sensitive to caffeine, it could keep them awake. Like I can drink a cup of coffee and go to bed. Doesn't bother me. But there are
Me
people
too.
that are very sensitive to caffeine, and especially people who have arrhythmias in their hearts. They shouldn't have caffeine. If they do have caffeine and they're taking echinacea, the caffeine could stick around longer and actually cause some damage, because they say that the heart does not need the caffeine.
So I'm not going to go to my local herb store and say, you know what, I heard that this was a really good thing and I need to get it, and just start taking it willy-nilly.
No, because you need to know what you're taking, and you need to talk to an herbalist. If there's some herbal supplement you want to take, you need to get their advice on that. And then you need to go back to your doctor, because an ethically minded herbalist is going to find out if this is going to interfere with any of your prescription medications.
So is there like a licensing process for herbalists on a state
There is
level?
not. There is not. It can just be willy-nilly. Because of my nursing experiences, I feel that I'm a little more qualified, because I know that there are medications and herbs that interfere with each other. And although I don't remember them all, I'm going to be very prudent in looking up the prescriptions you take and some sort of supplement to help you with whatever symptoms. Herbalists do not diagnose. They take whatever you find for the doctor, and supposedly maybe you have some symptoms like, a cold. It's pretty easy for me to self-diagnose a cold. And for you as a patient to say, I got a cold. Okay, you got a cold? Well, here, I think elderberries and echinacea and a combination of these things could help you. So I'm going on the fact that you think you have a cold. Well, if you have heart condition and you're taking medication drugs, I have to look each one of those up, and then I have to look up the herbs to help you with your symptoms, whatever symptoms you're having, if you're having other things going on. Because that's what herbs do. Herbs help control the symptoms. They don't cure.
So you're just making me think of all kinds of things, because, with my mother living with me for the past 6 years, I've been kind of in charge of monitoring her health issues. And at one time, she had 7 doctors she was seeing. For someone healthy, she was not. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that was always so frustrating for me is that the doctors did not talk to each other, even though they had access to each other's files. And her heart doctor was prescribing things for her that were going against what her general practitioner was prescribing for other things. And I'm like, no, she cannot take that. And if I had not been Googling the hell out of these medications and comparing notes, she probably would have stroked out years ago.
Well, that's why you need someone to advocate for you. Someone who's going to be conscientious. If you don't know how to look up this information, if you don't know how to find it, before the days of Google, back when my father was alive, he had a PDR, physician's desk reference on medications. And anytime he got a new medication, he would study it start to finish.
That's
and
smart.
sometimes they were pages and pages. And of course, that's where I got, what are you doing? Well, I'm reading about my medication. Okay. And he was getting these PDRs from, we had one of my mother's sisters was married to a physician, and when he would get a new PDR, he would send the old one to dad, and they would come out yearly because there's always new medications. And I think was my first indication that you have to be your own advocate. You have to find out what medications are you taking, what kinds of things interfere with this, what kind of things can boost it.
Yeah, and here's what gets me. We did the little FDA thing at the beginning of our session here, kind of in jest, we're trying to cover our butts legally and all this stuff. But the thing about it is that the reality is that, when you go and get a medication from the pharmacy, they give you this thing that's stapled to the sack that's usually 10 pages long of, the interactions with this and side effects, but no one goes over that with you. And so, I assume that most people can read in this country, but do they really understand the consequences? And do they understand how, if this is making your heart beat faster and you're on medication that's slowing your heart down because it already beats too fast, maybe we have a problem here. People don't think about that big picture naturally.
No, because if the echinacea actually can increase the time the caffeine is in your body, you can have more jitteriness, you can have headache, and you can have a rapid heart rate through too much caffeine. And if it's hanging around longer, you don't need that if you've got this heart condition. So the other thing about echinacea is it can decrease how quickly the liver breaks down some of the medications you take. There's all kinds of medications here, Flexeril, Haldol, Tofranil, these Talwin. A lot of these are anti-anxiety and depression drugs, and for mental Zomig. So these are muscle relaxers, antidepressants, migraine headache meds, dementia meds, beta blockers, asthma meds. And if they're not breaking down according to the timeline of the medication, then they're hanging around longer simply because you're now taking echinacea.
Well, and anti-anxiety medications, most of them are very hard on the liver to begin with. And you're always going through kidney and liver testing if you're on these prescriptions for long-term care, which is one of the things that's a huge struggle in the mental health community, is that most of their meds are hard on kidneys and liver. And so we see an increase in early death, not because of the mental health, but the treatment of the mental health. So when I read these surveys, the depressed people die sooner. Well, yeah, but especially if they're treated, with pharmaceuticals, because it's tearing their bodies up over long-term periods of time.
And if you just decide that you've got a cold, you got to take a bunch of echinacea to try to cut the cold, what are you doing to these other medications?
Exactly.
They're hanging around longer. They're not eliminated through your liver on a timely manner, and then everything gets out of balance. And then, whatever doctor prescribed him was like, I don't understand what's going on. And do you remember to tell him, oh, well, I had a cold, so I was taking some extra echinacea? No, you don't tell him.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I always do for myself, because I take a buttload of vitamins because of a nutrition issue that I have. And so I do that with mom. And when we go to her doctors, we list her medications. I don't have any medications. I take no scripts, but I take 2 pages that list every supplement I take, including the breakdown of what's in my multivitamin. Because the doctors need to know this so that they can research, or hopefully they're going to do that, anything that they might want to prescribe to me in the future. Or maybe I have misread or misunderstood, and I have put in the wrong combination of vitamins, and now I've made myself toxic for taking too much of something. So they need to know that as well.
Yeah,
this is complicated.
Exactly.
It's just, it's just not like going out in the woods and picking a weed and chewing on the stem.
Well, no, that's my other thing that I go bananas about is, don't think because I'm telling you about something and you think you know what it looks like, that you can go out there and wild harvest it and then use it. That is not true unless you have been specifically taught how a plant looks, how it tastes, how it, not just the leaves and the flowers, but the roots. Because a lot of these medications come from using the roots.
You know
So
what that makes me think of, though? When we were kids, did you do this? There was a weed. It was a weed. It was a weed out in the fields. And it was tall and thin, and it had these little dot things on the end of it. We called them sour dots. And we used to go and chop them off at the root and chew on those suckers because they were sour.
right.
This is what we
But
were
we
putting in our.
knew, right? We knew what they would do or what they wouldn't do. And
Well, we didn't know if they were covered with any kind of chemicals, though. They could have been spraying in the field.
of
We didn't.
course,
We just
of
chewed.
course. So just because you have a purple coneflower doesn't mean it's the correct species. Uh, that you want to put in your tea. So you have to get it from a reliable source. Or, if you take it in tea, if you want, there's an echinacea tea, there's all kinds of teas in the store that are, and brands that are not going to give you something besides the echinacea you're looking for.
Well, and that just makes sense. I mean, how many people have a preference over what brand of coffee they drink, or what brand,
Right.
is it Lipton or Louisiana tea? Which one do
Right.
you like? So
Yeah.
if those brands can have such a different taste to you and input to your body, it just makes sense that different brands of herbs and the quality and all that has to be taken into consideration for making your choices. And it's not just about flavor or just about color. It's about how your body, so like you were talking about your friend that couldn't take one item and you could, well, maybe
Mhm.
they need to try a different brand or different dosage,
Right. Or a lot of herbals do the same thing. So when herbals do the same thing, you can say, okay, if this one doesn't work for you, let's try this one. Just like valerian and passion flower can also help with anxiety, but maybe those does not cause her intestinal stress like the ashwagandha does.
Did she take it on an empty stomach? Did she take it on a full stomach? Those make differences too.
Exactly, those make a difference.
Tear
So,
me up. Don't
so
have
you were
food in my.
talking about the compounds in echinacea. They're all antioxidants, which are under
Wow.
the category of flavonoids and acids. So those particular kinds, and I don't mean acid like hydrochloric acid. I mean, they're very, like if you're on a pH scale, 7 is neutral, your stomach acid is 3. That's very acidic. So when it says an acid, it's probably going to be somewhere in the 4 or 5 range. So not as much as your stomach, but not 7 on a pH scale. I know I'm going scientific on you, but I'm sorry. But these are like a tachoric acid and rosmarinic acid. So those are all considered antioxidants.
Yeah, but you're making me do math now, and I don't do math.
I'm sorry, but echinacea. So echinacea also contains compounds called alkamides. So all of these things work together. And it's particularly the antioxidants because they go in there and reduce any oxidative stress that takes place inside your body, which is what happens when we have a cold.
So is there any person or any reason why a person shouldn't take echinacea? I mean, that's just across the board that, I can't think of a good example or good
Well,
metaphor. So
the best example is if you're taking something for rapid heart rate. If you're trying to keep your heart rate down, you don't, echinacea can increase that.
or if you're on maybe an anti-anxiety medications, you would not take it.
Right.
Is that what?
Well, the thing about it is you have to double check it every time.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to check the medication, the prescription medication you're taking. Then you have to go and check on the supplement that you're taking and cross-reference them. I mean, that's what
Okay.
I do a lot. People say, I want to take this. I said, well, what else are you taking? Are you allergic to anything? Because there are some components like cyanide and elderberries that we talked about. You don't want cyanide in your body.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful not to include any stems or leaves.
Listen, people, we're trying to make you healthy here.
Yes.
Eh,
So it's great to think, oh, that supplement does this, and I'm going to take that supplement. That's great. We can consider it, but you need to talk to your doctor and tell them that you want to do this for this symptom and see what they say.
Okay,
Because
but let me play devil's advocate here for a minute. What if your doctor is of the frame of mind that he's totally against herbs? I have met doctors like that.
yes.
Or what if he just doesn't know? Then what do you do?
Well, I hate to tell you, but sometimes doctors don't even know about prescription medications.
That's true.
Because they
That's
will give you something thinking, okay, this is the best medicine for this. And yes, it probably is, but you're taking also B, and he wants to give you C, and B and C don't play well together. So you have to be real careful. And if you have a doctor that is totally against herbs, you need an herbalist. You need someone that is either trained in traditional Chinese medicine or is willing to do the research to help you take whatever herb you think will help you with your symptoms. Because I know I said this, and I don't remember if it was today, but herbalists do not diagnose. They simply help you with your symptoms and help you try to be just like dealing with a cold, dealing with the flu. That's why I came up with the elderberry syrup that I make.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, the thing about it is that it makes me wonder if most people that are trained in Chinese medicine, is there a way to verify their training or verify their
Oh,
certificate?
yes, there are. Yes. Um, if they're classically trained in Chinese medicine, you're going to see a diploma on their wall, and you can ask where they got their training.
Okay, that makes sense.
My training came from not just my nursing license, but also from the East West School of Plants.
East to west. I don't know why that makes me.
East West School of Global Herbs. So yeah. And I'm constantly trying to learn new things. I'm actually going to be taking a new course. It's going to be 10 months through Rosalie DeFort. And she's from the school that I went to. But most of the herbalists are probably going to be taking a curriculum that is going to be more or less self-taught. You get the books and the curriculum, and you answer the questions, you do testing, but it depends on what you do with it.
Well, it seems to me that if I was just going to find someone on the internet and I didn't know someone personally or get a personal referral from someone, that I would want to know how they knew what they knew. They should be able to explain to me in less than 3 sentences where they got some training, where they get their products that they use for making their concoctions. That shouldn't be a secret, and what is their quality control? Do they wear gloves if they're mixing their own stuff? Do they have a sterile environment? Things of that nature. And that they would be happy to answer those questions and not get offended. That's my
Right.
thoughts.
Like in my apothecary, I do not use any of the things I use to make my herbal concoctions in my kitchen. These are all specific items. I have a specific mixer. I have a specific hot plate and I was going to say bowl, but yeah, there's lots of bowls and
You don't
pans.
mix. You have business and then you have your personal.
Yeah, nothing I use in the business is used for cooking food. It's all used for cooking elderberries or whatever I'm making. I have specific ball jars that I use when I do my throat spray, everything goes into the ball jar, and then I use brandy to extract the chemicals from the plants.
And you don't drink it.
I wouldn't say I've never drank the brandy, but the brandy I use is specifically for my throat spray. It's not like I take a swig of brandy and then pour it.
Well, it sounds like, okay, so how do I say this and not sound offensive? I'm just going to say it. So, there's such a surge, it seems like, especially post-virus, that people are more interested in homeopathic and home remedies and things of that nature than ever before, since our grandparents' time at least, or great-grandparents' time.
Well, and you
And
also go ahead.
I was just going to say, but the thing about it is that anything that has to do with treating our body, there has to be some common sense and some practical things. And, it's like they romanticize, that's what I'm looking for. They're romanticizing the herbal industry and things of that nature. Like, oh, this is what the crones used to do back in the Highlands of Scotland. And,
Well, yeah, but now, I mean, I use gloves. I pull my hair back. I don't want you to take some medication and go, what is this long blonde hair? I don't, so I pull my hair back. I wear gloves. Anything that I use is cleaned in the dishwasher, but then I have a sanitation chemical that I use.
So you're not in the backyard with a big old cast iron cauldron, bubble, boil.
As tempting as it is, no, I do not. It's a very.
And I make fun of that, but I'm just saying that there's some practicalities here that we in the 21st century have to take into consideration,
Yes, and
old, but it's common sense.
Anything that you get that is homemade, anything that so my apothecary, I'd make very small batches. I don't make a lot at a time. So sometimes you might have to wait 2 weeks. I try to keep a batch of throat spray that takes 6 weeks to extract the chemicals.
Right.
So I try to rotate it every 2 weeks. I make a new one, or every 3 weeks I make a new one. So it's available to pour up into the containers. I try to make sure the containers are BPA free. That's a very big thing. The chemical that can leach out into the fluid, you don't want that. I try to use glass when I can, but it's not always practical. So, I mean, anyone who makes any kind of herbal preparations from home like that has to be considerate of those things.
Well, I support what you do, and I think that you're very good at what you do, or we would not be sitting here talking about it. I've used Luann's syrup. I've used her concoctions of God knows what. I will even call her and say, I need this. This is what my body needs. Make me something, And she's very good at accommodating me. And they've all, I've just had, she even made a perfume. This is hilarious. She made a perfume based upon the scents I told her I wanted it to smell like. And for some reason or another, I'm smelling this perfume going, I'm going to put this on my hands. And I started putting it on my hands, and it faded the liver spots on my hands. So I'm intuitive, but she's great at being an herbalist. So and
of course, if she hadn't been crazy and put it on her hands, we wouldn't have known.
No. And so I've been putting it on this little spot on my face because I had a little sunspot from sitting in my car doing years of surveillance and the sun shining in through that window and me not wearing any kind of sunscreen. And that's even fading, which is huge because sunspots like that are usually 2 or 3 layers down in the dermis. So it's starting to work on that a little bit. So she's brilliant.
I also use her as a guinea pig.
Yeah, I'm the guinea pig. So if I come on here with horns one day and pink hair, you'll know why. All right, tell them how to find you and how to get a hold of you.
Okay, you can go to my website, which is herballu.com, HERBAL-LU.com. You can email me at herballu1105 HERBALLU1105 @gmail.com. And those are the best ways to get in touch with me. And if you go to the website, my email is on there.
Yeah, okay. All
Okay.
right. So this is going to be on our podcast channels. We're on several podcast channels on our YouTube channel that's sponsored by Miles of Smiles Entertainment. So you look for them and find us there. And we will be doing a lot more of these because there's tons and tons of herbs to talk about. So
Yep.
stay tuned. We'll have more.
Bye.
Bye.